Hello everyone, welcome to Grow Your Future. This is episode 72 and my name is Azmi. I am your host and I'm joined by my queen bee, Jade Azmi.
How are you going?
I'm great.
It's great to be back here on the podcast for another property Q&A. I love property Q&As.
Happy anniversary, by the way.
Thank you, you too.
It's 4 years, of marriage for me and Jade. We're very happy. And I guess, we've done so much business together. I think it's really important for people to find, their soulmate who can, be in line with their goals and all of that sort of thing. And we get asked that all the time, right? About how do we do it in business, property investing. And I guess our advice to you guys is if you don't have that partner that is, believes in your goals and is not aligned with your values, then get rid of them.
Yeah.
Find someone new.
Exactly. And I think it takes, and we're aware that not all partnerships do work in business and in personal, but we've made it work and we're figuring it out along the way.
I think it's really made our business, it's really made our marriage, doing business together, trying to achieve targets and goals and different things through, property investing, financial goals, and you make it fun.
Yeah.
And it becomes something that you can work on together, and it really has made our marriage blossom.
I think so, and my advice to you guys out there is just make it so exciting. There are so many ways you can make it exciting, and for me it's been the best 4 years of my whole life. So in business, in marriage, and I'm really excited for the future. And I guess we're here today to talk about the future and everyone else's future, right?
That's right. So that's what this podcast is about. This podcast is about helping you guys, get ahead in life through business, career, finance, health, wellness, all of those good things that you need in life to succeed, right? And we've been through ups and downs, through business, property investing. We've hit major financial hurdles, and we want to teach you guys how to learn from our mistakes so you don't have to make them, and you can succeed at property investing and in business and in life.
In life, yeah.
So what are we talking about today, Jade?
So we've been getting, me in particular, we both get a lot of questions on our social media in relation to property investing. Obviously, that's because we've made a living out of property investing over a decade now. And so we naturally get a lot of questions every single day. So we decided to do the property investing Q&A last year, and we've carried it on into this year. And we've just compiled as many as possible. So we're going to answer as many questions as possible. If we, again, run out of time, we'll do it next week again. But just to educate you guys and be able to have a platform like this to be able to answer them. And sometimes having, questions that I get, having Zah here is really beneficial because you can explain them in a lot more depth, especially the infinite return. So these are some of the questions that you guys have sent through over the last week or two. I might just kick it off, yeah?
Go on.
So the first question which comes through every single day is, now a good time to invest, or should we wait until next year after COVID blows over? I get this every day.
I get this every day as well, and it does my head in, right? Because so many people are so focused on, the purchase price today. But we've got to think about it. We're investing for 20, 30, 40 years, if not forever. We're buying these assets to pass on to our kids, our grandkids. We want to hold them for, our legacy that we leave behind. Most of the people that I deal with, it's a buy and hold strategy, as in they buy a property, they hold it for the long term, and they just get the rental income paying for their retirement. So people are so focused on the next 5 minutes, the next 5 months, the next 5 years, but they should be thinking about the next 10, 20, 30 years. And that's our strategy. So if that's your strategy, a buy and hold strategy to leave a legacy for your kids, to build wealth for the long term, it actually doesn't matter when you buy. But if you really want to drill down to whether today is the best time to invest or not, it really is. Because what are we waiting for? I hear so many people saying, I'm going to wait another 6 months. I'm going to wait till September when the holidays, the mortgage repayment holidays finish. And those same people that say that they're going to wait till then will then wait for another thing. They'll wait for another thing to happen. And, you know, the trouble with that is that those people don't get anything done. Like, I would rather you just buy something today and then think about your next deal in 6 months, right? And then in 12 months. Those people that do that, like us, we're 3 deals ahead of you in 12 months' time.
That's it.
Like, because we've taken action.
Yeah.
And whether we've overpaid by 5% or even overpaid by 10%, it doesn't really matter.
Get in.
Right? We've taken action, we've executed, and we've made it happen. And we've built our portfolio out.
Yeah.
Where these people, they sit on the sidelines and they think about that one property.
I know people that have waited over 10 years to execute. Like, I remember talking to people, we invested first 12 years ago, probably 13 years ago nearly. And I remember talking to those same people 13 years ago and they still haven't bought a property. They're still browsing on realestate.com. Obviously, more on that later. But it's almost like the diet, you know, I'm going to
Diet starts Monday.
Right?
Diet starts Monday. Property investing starts next year.
But
investing starts when the holidays finish.
After we
right?
get married, you know. But you know what, guys? I think I'm going to say something, and I feel that I have never read, and this is always off the back of reading something in the media, right? Oh, I shouldn't invest now because of COVID. Like everything we know, we read in the media. I don't remember in my 12, 13 years of investing reading anything good about property investing. It's always the doom and gloom. I can't pinpoint a time where it was a great time to invest because the media just, you know, they tar it with this negative brush.
Well, they thrive off negative news, right? And when it's booming, Jade, it's really interesting that you say that. Even when it's booming and property prices are through the roof,
there's always
the media is saying, okay, it's gonna come crashing down. Like it's just because they thrive off negativity. And going back to those people that you were talking about that haven't invested in over 10 years, right? And so we've invested for, 12 or 13 years now. And, if you compare those people to us, it's a totally different, it's one extreme to the other, right? So, you've got the people like us who have invested every year religiously, every single year, 12 months, bang, we get another one. 12 months, bang, sometimes 6 months. Sometimes we're getting 2 a year, sometimes we're getting 3 a year. And we've built this portfolio of assets over 12 years, right? And some of those assets don't perform as well as some of the other ones, right?
Yep.
And that's the truth. You're never going to get them all equally good. You're not going to get, a full hand of aces. It's just not going to happen. You're going to get some that don't perform as well as the others. But wouldn't you rather have a portfolio of assets that maybe say you've got 10 assets, 5 don't do that well, but they're okay, they're paying for themselves, and then you've got 5 cracker ones.
Yep.
And you've got this portfolio of 10 assets over 10 years, because that's what we try and push our clients to do, rather than the people that sit on the sidelines for 10 years and try and crack it with that one investment property, right? Because that one investment property, really, even if you do crack it with one investment property, is that going to pay for your retirement? One investment property will pay for your lunch, right? It's not going to really do that much for you. You need a portfolio of assets. So you need to take action every single day, right? And go, okay, what am I doing today to, work towards buying another asset? That's what your attitude's got to be,
That's right.
Time's running out.
Yeah.
We don't have that much time left to really invest, right? If you're young, you're watching this and you're listening to this podcast, right? Get up off your ass and get an asset, right? Because you got to think about not the asset that you're buying now. You got to think about the one after that, and the one after that, and the one after that. And as soon as you start thinking about the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, all of a sudden, you're not sitting on the sidelines.
No.
You're like, I've got to get shit done.
Yeah. And it's training that muscle, right? And just executing. For us now, like we've backed ourselves into a corner and we've become very, very good at executing because we don't have a choice. So if contract of sale comes in, we have to sign it, we get it back in 5 minutes. Obviously, once lawyers have gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, that contract is back at that office. Like we need to execute, and especially it just depends on your goals really, and what your strategy is. Everyone has different strategies, so but yeah, execute. Like people, I see that's the biggest thing that I see. People just a lack of execution and just full of excuses at the end of the day.
So basically, stop being a bitch and get it done. Really, at the end of the day, you know
That's
what I
it.
mean?
You said it.
You've got to take action. That's the number one rule. Take action. And if it's a mistake, right, you'll learn from it.
That's right. Can you further explain, I don't know if we're in a good position to do this, can you further explain investing with super? I get a lot of these questions. I think probably on this forum is the best place to chat about it in a general sense, right? So investing with SMSF, how do we do that?
Okay, so an SMSF, right, and this is not financial advice, by the way. Like, if you want to go and pursue this, I would recommend, getting professional financial advice. But this is just general advice in nature, and this is what we do, right? We have rolled our superannuation over into an SMSF, which stands for self-managed super fund, and we've gone out and bought property with that superannuation. Now, we don't have to buy property. You can buy, or you can invest in whatever it is that you want.
Gold.
Precious metals, stocks, shares, whatever, antiques, like, it's just, you can't use it for personal consumption.
Yep.
And the beauty of SMSF is that the profits that you make and tip back into your SMSF is discounted in terms of tax. And that's the major benefit.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's going towards your retirement. So, if you're 25 years old or you're 35 years old, you're probably not thinking about your super that much because you are, 65 years old that's a long time away for you. But once you enter your 40s and your 50s, you really start thinking about, okay, super is now important, right? And you always look back and think, I wish I did more. And if there was something you could change back, when you were 25 or when you were 35 and you're at 50 years old, and it meant, rolling your super over into a self-managed super fund, being a little bit more aggressive with your investment approach, taking control of the investment strategy, I think you'll really thank yourself in the future.
Yeah, and just to keep going on with this super very, very briefly, because I can't give financial advice either. It's very general advice, and it's what we have done personally, and a lot of our clients have done as well. A lot of people find that they don't know how much super they have, because it's just a thing that goes into your super account and you just forget about it. It's the wage every week that people really keep track of, and because that's the consumption, right? So a lot of people actually do have enough in their super to execute right now, or more than enough for 1 or 2 properties. So there is the capability there, but that's obviously for a financial advisor to give that advice over.
Well, look, a general rule of thumb is that if you've got $200,000 in combined super, so that could be $100,000 in, say, my account, and then $100,000 in, say, Jade's account. You both are married, so you can combine that super. Or you don't have to be married. You can combine it with someone else, like your, a business partner, or maybe your parents. You can do that, and then you can go out and go and buy property with that money. And there's no hard and fast rule of how much money that you need, but really a good rule of thumb is about $200,000. Mm-hmm. And if you want to find out more about that, we have the contacts that can help you, go along that journey.
Exactly. I always get this a lot. Where are we personally investing? We've answered this a few times, but I think people want to know because, it's a new month, and we are aggressive investors, and we are investing a lot. So the properties that maybe we were looking at a couple of months ago, we may have executed, and we've gone into new properties.
So the properties we're looking at now is definitely not Sydney. And the reason why we're not looking at Sydney is because Sydney it's had its time in the sun. The yields now are quite low. You're looking at, sometimes 1% yields, and it just doesn't make a good investment strategy for now. Where the affordability is in detached housing in Brisbane, townhomes in Brisbane, if you can find them, because there's a massive shortage of them up there, and also apartments in Melbourne. Melbourne houses have really, really taken off over the past, say, 5 or 6 years. Melbourne sits about 5 or 6 years behind Sydney, so apartments are still quite affordable in Melbourne, and we can still achieve 4 to 5% yields, which is really good, because if we're borrowing money at, say, 2.5%, and then we're getting a 5% yield, all of our costs are paid. And if you buy brand new, you're going to get those tax breaks, which even increases your yield even more. So, Melbourne apartments are great. Detached housing in Brisbane's great. So, for example, we're buying stuff for, say, 800 grand in Brisbane. Here in an equivalent suburb with an equivalent property, you're probably looking at around $3-4 million.
Yep.
But you're not getting the yield here, right? And yield is really important, because if you don't have yield, you can't keep moving forward. Because if a property is costing you $200-400 a week or a month out of your pocket, that's hurting your serviceability. That means you've got to go out into the marketplace, if you run your own business, for example, and earn more money, pay more tax, so that the banks can keep lending you money. And it's really important not to forget about the yield. And that's why we focus on markets that only have strong yields, but we also want to be in blue chip locations. Like we focus on Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane as our main investment hubs. And we're just not in Sydney now, because those yields just aren't there.
Yeah. And another, following on from that question, with where are we focusing on, state and market? So state and market are two very different things. State, obviously you've talked about Brisbane and Melbourne. We're staying away from Sydney. We're even probably staying away from New South Wales at the moment. We've done our job in New South Wales, and we're going up into the markets that are going to return the most for us. But what are some of the things that we look at when we go up into Brisbane, say? So for me, we always look at location, we always look at what infrastructure projects are happening at that point in time, schools, affluence. What are some of the other things that we look at? So,
analysing a location and a market is very interesting, especially when you don't live there. So, we're up in Brisbane quite a bit on the ground, but because we don't live there, we've got to conduct quite a bit more research around the area. Now, let's use Brisbane as an example, right? Because we've been spending quite a lot of time up there. We're doing quite a lot of developments up there. Now, Brisbane is one of the widest city regions in the Southern Hemisphere. So that's massive. So I think it's about 200 kilometres wide. So, you can be 180 kilometres out west and still be in Brisbane. Can you imagine that? Being 180 kilometres out west of Sydney and saying, oh yeah, we still live in Sydney.
Yeah.
So a lot of, amateur property investors are getting sucked in to investing in Brisbane, but not really being in Brisbane, if you know what I mean. So it's really important to be very, very selective. Brisbane's a much different market than Sydney. You can get it wrong, very easily. So you need to study things like affluence scores, and there are tools out there to sort of get a suburb profile in terms of an overall score for that suburb. Weekly family incomes is really good. So there's data out there to tell us, okay, what's the average for the state, right? And then we go, okay, what's the weekly family income for that particular suburb we're looking at? Now, if it's well above the average of the state, then we've got a good chance at making some growth there, right? We also look at vacancy rates, because we want to make sure we can get a tenant. 3% is around the good, healthy mark, because you want to go, okay, well, that 3% really just is just counted for people moving in and out, because there's always going to be some sort of vacancy. It's not going to be at zero. So we want to make sure we're at 3% or under. That tells us that there's quite a bit of demand in that area. What else do we look at? We would look at maybe days on market. This is a really important one, and people forget about this because they focus on price so much, where what you should be looking at is days on market. So if you've got, say, 60 days and under, then you've got some in-demand properties. If you've got 30 days and under, that is a hot market. That's a very undersupplied market. There's there's big demand there.
That's what Sydney was a couple of years ago.
That's right. Like we've just invested in a suburb called Fitzroy North, where days on market is like 25.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy. Put a property on the market, 25 days later, boom, it's sold. Like you want to be a part of that market.
Yeah.
That's a hot market. So those are some of the things we look at. Also, we look at median house price. We don't want to be purchasing property above the median house price, because we want the other properties that are more expensive to drag our prices up. So there are so many different moving parts. Like we've got obviously the 5 fundamentals, which is location, then you've got the builder developer, stage of the property cycle, supply and demand, and then yields. But then you've got they're the macro of the fundamentals. Then we've got to drill into the location, drill into the builder, drill into the stage of the cycle. Is it apartments? Is it houses, right? Is it, supply and demand? That's where we go to the vacancy rates, the days on market. So there are so many moving parts. And I guess that's why we have a business, because we've dedicated our business to this research and analysis.
Yeah, exactly. Why do we focus so much on new properties? And I get this when I do some stories on the new properties that we are purchasing, and we have answered this question a few times before, so it's just new questions coming through from new people. So for us, we've been there with, we're not saying that existing properties are bad, because we do have a lot of existing properties in our portfolio, but for us personally, we've just moved on to the new properties. How would you explain that?
So let's talk about one of the number one reasons new properties are great is because the government doesn't actually want to build housing for people. They can't afford it. So what they do is they give us property investors who decide to construct new homes or, be a part of a new development with apartments, for example, and they gift us money. And the way they gift us money is through a tax break. So we pay good old ScoMo a big tax bill every year. He actually takes it from us. Every week you get paid, he's the first person to get paid. You don't actually, if you've got a job, you actually don't get paid first. He gets paid first. And then once he takes that money, he's free to do what he wants with it. Now, as a reward, he's saying, basically, if you build a new property or if you buy a new property, we're going to give you some of that tax back, which is like a gift from the government. So that alone is massive.
Yeah.
So if you build something for, say, $1 million, you could get maybe $40,000 worth of depreciation in the first year. Like that's really, really big.
Massive, yeah.
It's massive. And let's say you've got, say, 5 or 6 of those in your portfolio, like you're paying $0 in tax.
Yeah.
So, there's an incentive there. Now for us, why have we moved into it? Not just because of the tax break, but because of the bigger yields. Generally speaking, tenants will pay more to live in a brand new property. They will appreciate it more and they'll pay a premium. So then your yields start to increase, right?
In my words, buying brand new properties or building brand new properties or going into a development, which a lot of our clients have done, is that better quality tenants, great locations. So these locations that we're choosing to go into are, 10 out of 10 affluence most of the time. You don't need to manufacture growth through renovations. So it's all ready to go. It's turnkey.
So that's probably the second thing why you would invest in brand new properties. Now the third thing would probably be what you want to do in your portfolio is, like we said earlier in the podcast, you want to keep these properties forever. So generally speaking, you'll probably rather keep the brand new properties than the older properties, because the older properties are going to require much more maintenance. They're going to provide that lower yield. You're going to have to do repairs to it. They're just going to be these needy properties that are going to require so much work. And in retirement, you don't want to be thinking about that. You just want a carefree property that's going to give you that passive income and you just don't have to think about. So, one of the strategies that we deploy here at Luxland is that if you buy, say 5 older properties and then you continue to buy 5 brand new properties, eventually what you can do is you can sell the old 5 properties, pay down the debt on the new properties, and then the new properties just produce that passive income for you, debt-free. You can have those 5 new properties unencumbered. Because think about it, what would you rather hold
For
Would you
sure.
would you rather the brand new ones or would you rather the older ones? Now the older ones might have already done its job of the growth and given you the renovation potential and all of that sort of thing early on in your portfolio. But it's going to get to a point where you don't care about any of that anymore. You're just focused on yields, tax breaks, and retirement.
That's it. I think another thing about new properties is that they are they're easy, you know, like they're a lot of the time that they're there for you, ready to go in great areas. They have to be in a good area. They have to be in a good location. They have to tick all the boxes. They have to fall under the 5 fundamentals, and we can go into that next time. As opposed to, you know, trawling the internet for existing properties. It's very difficult, and sometimes it's a full-time job, and that's another reason, going back to why people don't invest. I get it. Like, I get why people don't pull the trigger. It's such hard work, and it takes a lot of time, and I guess that's why we created Luxland many years ago, to be able to free people up of that time, and, you know, we go and do all the hard yards for the clients.
Well, look, it is an overwhelming process, right? Like, if you look on realestate.com and you have to speak to agents and you have to actually go and inspect these properties, which is quite hard to do now because of travel restrictions.
Yeah.
Like, you are leaving so much room for you to get ripped off and overpay, and also buy the wrong asset. I actually don't mind if you overpay. I overpay all the time, right? Credit where credit's due. Like, I'm happy to overpay. But if I buy the wrong asset, or if my clients buy the wrong asset, that can potentially roadblock you for a very, very long time. And that's why we say to you, yeah, as much as you need to execute and you need to take action, mitigate that risk through education.
Yeah.
Mitigate that risk through engaging people like us. Mitigate that risk by putting your hand up and asking for help.
That's exactly right. I got this question the other day because it was our 4-year anniversary a couple of days ago, and I put up a story about the wedding gift that you gave to me the morning of our wedding. And I've gotten so many questions since then. Can you tell me more about the wedding gift that you gave me on our wedding day? So I thought today would be a good opportunity to talk about that, because it's property investing. So the property investing guy bought me an investment property for my wedding gift. Do you want to explain why you did that and what it was?
Okay, so, you know, apart from being an emotional decision, and I wanted to provide something special for my wife, or my soon-to-be wife at the time, I wanted to make a commercial decision, right? And we were doing this development in, let me take it back even further than that. We didn't actually have one of those really big weddings. So we don't actually have that much family here. Like, I've only got immediate family, and, you know, Jade, you've pretty much got the same. So we don't have big families. But we did budget for a big wedding. And we decided not to go through with it, and we went overseas to get married. So basically, I had this budget for a wedding, so some surplus cash, and I wanted to do something special for Jade. So at the time, before we actually signed the papers to get married, we were doing a development in Newcastle, and it was a block of 10 units. And we did a big redevelopment of this existing block of 10 units. And I had this with 2 other business partners. And what I did with the profits of the development, and also the surplus cash that I had from the wedding budget, I tipped it into one of the units to keep it. So I retained one of the units from the development. And, you know, obviously once you retain a unit from the development, you've got to get it over from a company into your personal name, and I decided to put this one in Jade's name. And you know, on the morning of I guess you could call it our wedding, when we went to sign our papers, I gave Jade a gift, and it was an envelope, and it was a set of keys to the front door of this brand new apartment, and a contract of sale. And she obviously hadn't signed it yet because she didn't know about it, but it was a contract of sale for her to sign. And I did that on our wedding day. So that I guess that apartment that we still hold in our portfolio today gives us, you know, passive income, but it's almost like an emotional asset, which we'll never ever sell because there's some emotion attached to that asset. So that property right now, I think it's worth around $600,000. At the time, I think we got it for around $450. So it was, it's giving us around $500 a week in rent, which is pretty good. It's got tax breaks because we've done the redevelopment on it. And it's a property that we'll keep in our portfolio, forever. We'll want to pass this on to, our unborn children, and, hopefully they do something special with it as well.
Yeah, and I think for me, it was a big, it symbolised a lot of assurance that morning because, us girls, we get really nervous on the morning of our wedding, right? We just want everything to flow smoothly and we want our hair to look nice and we don't want anything to go wrong. And just that moment for me, I was like, okay, I'm really marrying the right guy who's taking control for our future. And, that I can't stress that enough. I think it is so important to take control of your future. And I knew that ever since the day I met you, and that I wanted to marry you, but that gift symbolised a lot of assurance and security for the future for us as well. So it was a really special moment, and apart from it being romantic and it was an emotional experience, it's really important to start thinking of your future before you start thinking of it, guys.
Look, guys, you're probably listening to this going, that's beautiful, Zah, and all of that sort of thing. Yeah. But the serious takeaway from this, is that when I got engaged to Jade, I automatically, we were engaged for 2 or 3 years, 2 years before we got married, and as soon as I got engaged to Jade, I was like, okay, this woman now is my responsibility. Mm-hmm. And I stepped up to the plate, right? I stopped being a kid. I started thinking, okay, what am I going to do for the future? And I stressed. And I still stress to this day, which is good stress, about how I'm going to provide for my family. What am I going to do if something happens to me? So I wanted to reassure Jade that if there was something that was going to happen to me, she was going to be okay, because I've set her up. And it's not about just leaving money.
No.
Right? It's about, backing your family with assets that are going to hold you up through the tough times. Forget about the good times.
It's not about the good times.
Everybody thinks about, the Lamborghinis or the Mercedes and the holidays and the jewelry and the nice clothes and all of that sort of thing. It's got nothing to do with that. It's about providing that assurance, like you said, Jade.
The choice.
Right? So a lot of people are going, oh yeah, Zah, that's great. You're making us all look bad because you bought your wife an extravagant wedding gift. It's not that. It's insurance.
Yeah.
It's insurance against the bad times.
Yeah.
Because if bad times come, we have the income to put food on the table, to pay our rent, right? To provide employment to our staff, to help our parents out if they ever get sick.
To go through another health crisis like COVID, we'll go through another health crisis. In the next 20 years, there'll be another one.
To donate to charity when we are in a crisis. How good would that be? Everyone's thinking, oh, recession, oh, crisis, what am I going to do? JobKeeper, how am I going to afford to look after myself? You don't want to be thinking about that. You want to be thinking, okay, how can I help other people? How can I help other people get through this crisis? That's what I'm thinking about.
Yep.
I'm thinking about how can I lift others up so that they don't have to go hungry, right? Because I'm okay. Once you figure out how to look after yourself, how to look after your family, right? Have your bills paid. You're above survival. You're not thinking about how you're going to pay your bills. You're thinking about, okay, how am I going to change the world? How am I going to get people to also think about other people? That's what we're trying to train our team up, right? To not just think about themselves. Stop being selfish, right? Not thinking about your future is being selfish, because you're only thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Me buying the property for you as a wedding gift is not a selfish act. It's backing myself up. So if anything was to happen to me, you're going to be okay. And everybody else is going to be okay. That's the key, guys. That's the key.
That's the story, and that's the decision behind why the investment property was purchased. It was an emotional decision, obviously, but it was a very commercial decision as well. And I think there are a lot of learnings in that story. There really are.
Or people think about themselves too much.
Yeah.
Right? People think about themselves too much. They don't think, okay, well, if I buy this property, then it's going to help my family, not provide me the income. Like, it's going to help others.
Yeah.
Like, further down the track. Start thinking about that. Too many people just think about themselves, and you know what? They're so short-sighted. They don't even see past their nose. And this is the reason why not many people get into property investing, because they think about the short term.
Themselves.
Think long term. Think about who you can help along the way.
Well, there's no Euro trips this year, so...
Buy a property.
Yeah. Next question from one of my followers. Renovate an existing property, so the existing property that they have and that they live in, or use the money that they have in equity to buy another property. So renovate their PPR, principal place of residence, or take that equity out and drop it into a new property.
Look, I've done my fair share of renovations, and you know, with these TV shows like The Block and what other TV shows are, the Flip or Flop, and all of those different TV shows. Selling Houses Australia. They're all there to promote, you know, obviously the services and the materials that they use on set, and they do a very good job of it.
They do great, yeah.
But the problem is that it's unrealistic to think that we can all do it. Right? Most of us have full-time jobs or a full-time business, families, and I just don't recommend people doing it if they've got all of those things, because it is a very, very laborious procedure. I did it because I did it full-time, and that was what I did to make money at the time, and I did very well out of it. But would I do it again? Only if I really had to. And if you're asking for advice on whether you should renovate your existing PPR or go out and buy another investment property, I'm always going to say go out and buy another investment property. You need to focus on asset accumulation, building growth. Like, do the renovations after. Do it when you're retired, right? Like, I'm building granny flats on places that I bought 10, 12 years ago, right? Because I've got time to do that now. Yeah. Right, I can sort of, I've got that luxury, but you know, initially I didn't. So what you've got to focus on, buy as many assets as you can. If you've got surplus cash, buy another asset. If you've got equity in your home, buy another asset. Renovations, unless you're pressured into renovate because your bathroom's broken and you can't use it and you've got to renovate it, then okay, it makes sense. But purely to renovate because you think you're going to tap into the equity or whatever it is to me, is a flawed strategy, right? Because I only say to renovate if you've got money to burn.
Yeah.
Right?
But also, you've got to be really careful, because when you live in your principal place of residence, it's an emotional investment, right? You live there, so you are emotional about it. You cook in the kitchen every day, you brush your teeth in the bath, you sleep in the bed, like it's your home. So a lot of people tend to overcapitalize on the renovations that they do. I've
actually overcapitalized many times on investment properties. Like, it's so easy to do because things pop up.
And it's pointless.
You don't get your return.
Yeah.
We are in the business of making money.
Yeah.
We're in the business of maximizing our money, leveraging as far as we can, getting that return. And if you think about it, unless you're a professional full-time renovator, it is very difficult to do. Yeah. Like, go as far as carpet, paint, blinds, right? And more paint. You know what I mean? Like, we try and keep it at a minimum, because what we want to do is we would rather spend better money on trying to get a better asset, right? Spend that money on a better asset. So rather than spending 400 grand on an investment property, go look to spend 500 grand. Put all of your surplus cash into accumulating more assets, that cash flow. And then what will happen is that you'll thank yourself in 10, 15, 20 years time that you've got all of these properties, this big portfolio, and you're not worried about, thinking small about this one little property that you can renovate and maybe get 20, 30 grand in equity. Like, that's not going to do anything for you.
No.
Right? Go buy more assets.
We've got 2 questions yet left, so we're going to try and run through them before we run out of time. Can you explain the infinite return wealth builder strategy? So this video, I think it's like a 4 or 5 minute video. It's up on YouTube at the moment. How to build infinite wealth. And So in a nutshell, it's a strategy that Zar has created himself. So he's the brainchild behind this strategy, this particular strategy, and working with these numbers on a general basis. So can you explain to our audience what the Infinite Return Wealth Builder is under the Luxland product?
All right, so let's talk about infinite, right? Like what does infinite mean? And the reason why we call it infinite is because we're creating money from nothing. And when you're creating money from nothing, you're basically getting a forever return on your money, because you're getting a passive income and it hasn't cost you anything. So how does it work? Like, you can do this with, a house, an existing property, and you can do some work to it. Or you can do it with an apartment on an off the plan, or you can even do it on a big townhouse development. It's more so just applying this infinite wealth principle to the numbers. So how do the numbers work? So let's talk about it. Like, you've got $100,000, for example, to invest. And let's not talk about the property itself. Let's just talk about the numbers. So we invest $100,000 into a property, right? And then what happens is we might do some work on the property or whatever it is, but we've spent $100,000 in that property. Now, what we look to do in, say, it could be a time period of 12 months, 24 months, or 3 years, right? And what we want to do from there is we want to be able to make another $100,000 so we can go back to the bank, refinance the property, draw out our initial $100,000, retain a $100,000 position within the holding of the property, and also get a rental return of, say, 5 or 6%, right? So that it cash flows and looks after itself. Now, why is it called? Why is it called an infinite wealth return? Because that $100,000 initial investment, I've got back.
Plus, you get to keep.
Plus, you've got a property that cash flows, and you've got a strong equity position. Usually, it's around 15 to 20%. Which is hard to come up with that deposit anyway.
Go again.
And you can go again, right? So you really want to focus on trying to really stretch your money as far as possible, but also getting that return. I know 12, 24 months is not instant, but it really isn't that long, right? You can get that money back, and then you can, like you said, Jade, go again.
We've been doing the Infinite Return Wealth Builder, trialing it for 10 years.
Yeah, so we've done it through existing housing, we've done it through off-the-plan apartments, we're doing it now with townhouses. It's about being creative, it's about getting the right people on your team, right? And this is how you make money in property. Like the old, buy and hold and just, buy anything and just wait for the long term, it's too slow, right? You've got to be creative, you've really got to, try and rework the numbers, do heavy negotiations, make sure that your numbers stack up in the beginning, so that when you dive into it, that return's going to be there. And that's the beauty of property, right? Like, you think about any other business that you get into, there are so many unknowns. Like, we're involved in other businesses, and there are so many unknowns, and we just don't know if it's going to succeed or not. But the beauty of property is that you can stack your numbers up, know your returns, know the market that you're investing in, and then go, all right, well, I'm pretty much guaranteed. I've bulletproofed my return on investment.
And I think it's all about, as time goes on, it's all about getting really, really creative with property investing. And those people that are really creative with investing in property are the ones that are going to win, and they're going to win a lot bigger than the ones that just play small and, are kind of doing that passive investing rather than real aggressive creative investing. And that's what we're here for.
Aggressive gets you results, guys.
Exactly. That's going to wrap us up for another week, guys. We've run out of time. We've got so many more of your questions. I'm sorry that if we didn't get to your questions today. I promise you we will get to them next time. We'll do another property Q&A in a couple of weeks, yeah?
I love these Q&As.
Me too. I hope everyone has a good weekend, and this has been fun.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Bye, guys.
Peace.